My family loves him. They'll never accept you. I can't choose you over them, she said, choosing their approval over me. So, I moved on in silence. Now, she's miserable, begging for another chance. They call me daily to complain about the monster they forced on her. I don't care anymore. Hey viewers, before we get into the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Thanks. To see more stories like this. And thanks. Reddit. I never thought I'd be posting here, but 2 years after my ex left me for the man her family approved of, she's blowing up my phone. Buckle up, because this one is a doozy. I'm writing this mostly to get it off my chest, and maybe warn anyone else dealing with family interference in their relationship. The names have been changed for obvious reasons, but the story is real. Let's call me Alex, her Emily, and the golden boy David. I met Emily in college about 6 years ago. I was studying engineering on a full scholarship, and came from a working-class family. My dad was a mechanic, my mom a teacher. Nothing fancy, but solid. Emily came from old money, the kind with a family estate and trust funds. We connected in a literature class. She was smart, funny, and seemed completely unconcerned with our differences. At first, everything was great. We'd study together, go on inexpensive dates to food trucks or hiking trails, and talk about building a future. I fell hard, because she made me feel like I belonged. Like my background wasn't a barrier. But her family never hid their disapproval. From the first holiday dinner at their sprawling house outside the city, it was obvious I wasn't one of them. Her mother, Mrs. Thompson, would make passive-aggressive remarks. "Oh, Alex, how quaint that you fix your own car. Our mechanic handles that for us." Her father would question me about my career prospects, subtly implying that my engineering job at a mid-sized firm wasn't ambitious enough. And then there was David, the perfect family friend they'd been pushing on her since high school. He came from their world, same private schools, same European vacations, same social circle. I'd hear about him constantly, and he always seemed to appear at family gatherings. At first, I ignored it. Emily reassured me it meant nothing, and that she had chosen me. After graduation, we moved into a cozy apartment in the city. I worked overtime to make ends meet, and even turned down a promotion that required travel, because Emily said she needed me around while she pursued her master's degree in art history, something her family partially funded. I picked up side gigs to cover the rest. I remember one particularly rough period. She was overwhelmed with finals, so I worked double shifts to pay for a weekend getaway for the two of us. She cried and told me I was her rock. I believed her, but the pressure from her family never stopped. At every event, they'd seat David next to her and make inside jokes about old memories. Mrs. Thompson once pulled me aside and said, "Emily needs someone who understands our world, dear. It's not personal." Emily defended me for a while, but over time I noticed a change. She'd come home from family dinners distant and withdrawn, making little comparisons. David's starting his own business. That's exciting, right? Or as my parents adore him. It makes things so easy. I felt like I was competing with a ghost, but I stayed loyal. After 4 years together, I proposed with a simple ring I'd spent months saving for. She said yes, but the excitement faded quickly. Her family barely acknowledged the engagement, and the attempts to pair her with David only intensified. I gave up a lot. I skipped friends' weddings for her family's obligations. I spent holidays quietly enduring their disapproval. I convinced myself that love meant sticking it out. Looking back, it was emotional abandonment from the beginning, slowly wearing me down until I felt like a backup plan. Everything came to a head last summer. We had been engaged for 6 months, and were planning a small wedding, but her family insisted on hosting it at their estate, and paying for it only if it met their standards. Naturally, that meant inviting David. At a pre-wedding family brunch, things became uncomfortable. Mrs. Thompson raised a toast to finding the right match, while looking directly at David. Emily laughed it off, but later that week she started canceling our plans, saying she needed space to think about her family. One evening, I came home from work and found Emily sitting on the couch with several bags half-packed. The atmosphere felt heavy, as if she'd been rehearsing the moment for days. I set down my keys and asked what was wrong, doing my best to keep my voice steady. She looked up at me, not with tears or regret, but with a smug, resolved expression, as though she'd already settled the debate in her mind. "Alex, we need to talk," she said, folding her arms. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about the future. My family has made it clear they'll never fully accept you, and I can't keep fighting them. It's exhausting." I stood there, trying to process what I was hearing. "What are you saying, Emily? We're engaged. We've built a life together. She rolled her eyes slightly, as if I were missing the obvious. Built a life? Come on, Alex. This apartment, your job, it's fine. But it's not what I grew up with. David, my family loves David. They've known him forever. He fits. They'll never accept you, no matter how hard you try. I can't choose you over my entire family. It's tearing me apart. Her words landed like a punch to the gut, but I didn't react. I simply nodded, trying to make sense of it. Tearing her apart? She didn't look torn. She looked relieved. So David's the reason. All those setups weren't just coincidences. She laughed. A short, dismissive sound. Don't make this dramatic. It's not like I've been cheating or anything. But yeah, we've been talking more. He gets it. The pressure, the expectations. David is one of us. You'll always be an outsider. It's just easier this way. Why fight when I can have peace? Easier. That was the word that hurt the most. 4 years together. Every sacrifice I made, reduced to an inconvenience. I wanted to ask why she'd said yes to the proposal. Why she'd let me believe we had a future. But her tone was so cold, so entitled, that it felt like I had merely been a phase she'd outgrown. She stood up, and picked up a box from the floor. I deserve to be happy without all this conflict. My parents are right. Marrying outside our circle just complicates everything. David's starting that business with family backing. It's stable, connected. You're sweet, but let's be real. You don't fit in at those dinners, those trips. It's awkward for everyone. The unfairness burned inside me, but I didn't beg or raise my voice. If that's how you feel, then go, I said calmly, keeping my voice steady. Inside, though, I was reeling. How could she twist this into being my fault? The hypocrisy was staggering. She blamed her family while openly admitting she'd chosen convenience over us. She paused, almost as if she expected more resistance. Maybe tears that would help justify her decision. You're not even going to argue? See, that's the problem. You're too passive. David would fight for what he wants. She shook her head with a smirk. Anyway, I'll take my things. We can sort out the lease later. Mom's already helping me. Move back home temporarily. Passive? After putting up with their nonsense for years? I helped her pack the last box, handing it to her without a word. She looked surprised for a moment. Maybe there was the slightest flicker of doubt, but she quickly covered it with more smugness. Thanks. This is for the best. You'll find someone on your level. As she walked out and slammed the door behind her, I stood there in the silence. The apartment felt hollow, echoing with the words she'd left behind. Outsider. Easier. I sank onto the couch and stared at the ring box she'd left on the table. The confusion hit hard. Had it all been a lie? The late nights I worked so she could focus on school, the family events where I smiled through their contempt. It all felt undeserved, as though I'd been manipulated from the very beginning. But I didn't call her. I didn't text. I just sat there, letting the betrayal settle in like a slow-acting poison. That night, sleep never came. Her family's manipulation kept replaying in my head. Their constant efforts to erode our relationship until she finally turned against me. Why wasn't I enough? The unfairness gnawed at me, but I refused to chase after her. If she wanted easy, she could have it. The days after Emily left passed in a blur. I didn't flood her phone with messages or show up at her family's Platense estate demanding explanations. Instead, I cut ties completely. The very next morning, I blocked her number, unfollowed her everywhere, and began packing up what remained of our life together. The lease was in both our names, but I called the landlord, calmly explained the situation, and arranged to end it early. I found a smaller apartment across town. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. No drama, no scenes, just quiet action. Work became my anchor. I threw myself into it, and accepted the promotion I'd had turned down before, the one that required travel. The long hours helped distract me from the pain. At night, alone in my new apartment, the confusion hit the hardest. I kept replaying her words. You'll always be an outsider. Why had I allowed myself to be treated that way for so long? I thought back to our second Christmas together. I'd driven through a snowstorm to attend her family's party, only to spend most of the evening sitting alone while they showered David with attention. Emily barely spoke to me. Later, she'd shrugged it off and said, "It's just how they are." I'd sacrificed time with my own family for that gathering, believing it showed my commitment. Now it felt like emotional abandonment. Her family's disrespect had slowly seeped into our relationship until it finally broke apart. For weeks, I sat with the unfairness of it all. Every morning I woke up questioning everything. Was I really not good enough because of where I came from? The silence made those thoughts louder. No calls from her. No apologies. Mutual friends reached out awkwardly. Heard about Emily and David. Sorry man. I'd simply reply, it's fine, and change the subject. I never badmouthed her. That wasn't who I was. Instead, I started going to the gym, something I'd neglected to accommodate her schedule. I joined a hiking group and made new friends who couldn't care less about social status or family pedigree. Little by little, the vulnerability faded. I realized it was never about my worth. It was about their toxicity, and her decision to surrender to it. As the months passed, my inner dialogue changed. Instead of asking, why me, I began thinking, this freed me. I traveled for work, explored new cities, and even started dating casually. There was no rush. I was simply learning to enjoy my own company. A year later, I earned another promotion and bought a small house in the suburbs with a yard. It wasn't extravagant, but it was something I'd earned myself. I remembered a low point shortly after the breakup. I'd come across an old photo of us hiking, Emily smiling as though I was her entire world. Back then, I'd felt discarded, like I had only served a purpose during her rebellious phase. But now I saw things clearly. I'd been loyal to a fault. I'd devoted myself to someone who ultimately viewed me as disposable. The betrayal still hurt, but it became fuel for growth. I wasn't confused anymore. I was free. Emily gradually faded into irrelevance. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard she'd married David quickly. A lavish wedding at the estate. Good for her, I thought. And I genuinely meant it. Without bitterness, I'd built a real life on my own terms. No more enduring insults. No more manipulation. The silence I'd chosen had become a source of strength. About a year and a half after the breakup, karma finally started catching up. I wasn't looking for updates. I wasn't checking her social media or keeping tabs on her life. But news found its way to me through mutual acquaintances. One evening, our old college friend Jake ran into me at a networking event. Over drinks, he shared the latest developments. Dude, Emily's marriage is a mess. According to him, once David had gotten what he wanted, the charm disappeared quickly. He quit his half-hearted attempt at a job, convinced that family connections would guarantee success. But instead of building anything meaningful, he spent his days lounging around their house, expecting Emily to cook, clean, and manage everything while he played video games or went golfing with friends. And it got worse. David had started treating her family's money like his personal ATM. Mrs. Thompson complained to anyone who would listen that David was unbelievably entitled, constantly demanding funding for business ideas that never went anywhere. He ran up bills on trips, and then guilted Emily into covering them with what remained of her inheritance. The tension kept building. Family dinners turned into arguments, with David snapping at her father for not supporting him enough. Emily, who had chosen the easy path, now found herself stuck in the middle, trying to keep the peace while her life unraveled into resentment. She lost weight and looked exhausted in the photos Jake showed me. Friends started distancing themselves, tired of the endless drama. Her art history career stalled because she was too busy enabling him. Emotionally drained and beginning to feel the strain financially as well, she watched her family's patience wear thin. The irony wasn't lost on me. The perfect fit had turned out to be lazy and fake, dismissing her efforts the same way she'd dismissed mine. I didn't gloat. It simply confirmed that I'd dodged a bullet. Still, it felt like justice delivered through the consequences of their own choices. Then came the attempts to crawl back. At first, they were subtle. About 18 months after the breakup, I received a text from an unknown number. Later, I realized it was Emily. Hey, Alex, it's Emily. Been thinking about old times. How are you? I stared at the message and felt nothing beyond mild annoyance. No apology. Just fishing. I didn't respond. A week later, another message arrived. I miss our hikes. Life's been crazy. Coffee sometime? I ignored that one too. The escalation came a month later in the form of a phone call. I let it go to voicemail. Alex, pick up. I know you're there. Look, I made a mistake. The family stuff. It pressured me into something stupid. David's not who I thought he was. Can we talk? I need a friend right now. A friend? After calling me an outsider? Her voice carried that same manipulative edge, as though she expected sympathy. I deleted the voicemail without replying. The balance of power had shifted. She was desperate. I was detached. Then the friends got involved. Jake texted me. Emily asked me to reach out. She's really sorry, man. Says her mom pushed her too hard. Give her a chance. It felt toxic. Like they were trying to guilt me into believing I owed her something. I replied with a simple, not interested. He backed off. Then another mutual friend, Sarah called. Alex, she's falling apart. David treats her terribly. Lazy, demanding. Her family regrets everything. You're the stable one she needs. Come on, forgive and forget. Forgive and forget. Her tone was unpleasant and pushy, as though I was somehow the villain for moving on. Sarah, this isn't my problem, I said firmly. Tell her to work it out with David. Click. Emily's next move was showing up unannounced in my office lobby. I was heading out for lunch when I spotted her. She looked disheveled, with red eyes and a worn expression. Alex, please. Just 5 minutes. I stopped, but kept my distance. Emily? What are you doing here? She stepped closer, her voice cracking, yet still carrying a trace of entitlement. I screwed up. Big time. David. He's useless. He expects me to wait on him. He fights with my parents constantly. Mom hates him now. Says he's draining us. I thought it would be easy, but it's hell. You were good to me. Reliable. I see that now. Let's try again. I'll cut them off if I have to. The hypocrisy was impossible to miss. She blamed everyone else and framed her betrayal as if it had been a minor mistake. There was no genuine remorse. Only desperation for the stability I'd once provided. You chose this, I said calmly, without emotion. David was one of you. Easier, remember? Her face flushed, and anger flickered across it. Don't throw that back at me. I was confused. Pressured. You're being cruel, acting like you don't care after everything we had. I don't, I replied evenly. This conversation is over. I walked past her and left her standing there, furious. Later, the texts became hostile. Heartless jerk. You'll regret this. No one else will put up with your boring life. There it was. The real version of her. From smug, to desperate, to angry. Next came her family. One day, Mrs. Thompson called. Alex dear, it's been too long. Emily's told me everything. We missed the way you treated her. David's, well, a disappointment. Lazy, entitled. We should never have interfered. She sounded just as unpleasant as ever, speaking as though they hadn't been the ones who orchestrated the entire situation. Mrs. Thompson, why are you calling? She sighed dramatically. Make amends. Come over for dinner. We can talk some sense into Emily together. You're family material, not him. Family material. Now, I almost laughed at the reversal. The final nail came a few weeks later during my housewarming party. I'd invited coworkers and friends from my hiking group to celebrate. Nothing extravagant, but it felt like a meaningful milestone. Halfway through the evening, my phone rang. Mrs. Thompson again. I stepped outside for some quiet before answering. Alex, please listen, she began, her voice pleading. David's gotten worse. He's refusing to work, spending our money like water. We fight every day. Emily's miserable. We all miss you. You were so steady, so kind. How can we fix this? I leaned against the railing and listened to the laughter coming from inside. My life was thriving. Peaceful. Hers was irrelevant. I'm sorry you're unhappy with the son-in-law you chose for yourselves, I said calmly and firmly. It has nothing to do with me. Goodbye. She sputtered. But Alex. I hung up and blocked the number. No sympathy. No lingering attachment. She, and all of them, had no power over me anymore. They were ghosts, from a chapter of my life I'd already outgrown. I went back inside, raised a toast with my friends, and never thought about her again. If you're reading this, Emily, no, I'm good, really good. Without you, I've earned a promotion, bought a home, and surrounded myself with people who value me for who I am. You're irrelevant to my happiness. I've built something real on my own terms. Lesson learned. Never settle for being anyone's outsider. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story?